I woke up on my birthday feeling excited about the surprise party my girlfriend Amanda was planning with my family. I had no idea that this celebration would turn into the worst day of my life. When I arrived home, instead of birthday wishes, I was met with accusations, disgust, and disbelief in my parents' eyes. My girlfriend stood beside my brother Jason, tears streaming down her face as she pointed at me. "I cannot hide this anymore," she whispered. "Everyone needs to know what he did." Before we continue, let me know where you are watching from today and hit that subscribe button if you want more real-life stories. My name is Vincent, and I am a software engineer from Seattle. At the time this nightmare began, I was 27 years old with what I thought was a pretty good life. I came from what most would consider a close-knit family. My parents, Margaret and Thomas, raised 3 kids in a modest suburban home filled with love and support. My younger brother Jason was 25, just 2 years behind me, and my sister Sarah was the baby at 22. We had our typical sibling rivalries growing up, but nothing out of the ordinary. We celebrated holidays together, helped each other move, and called regularly. I never imagined they would one day turn their backs on me based on lies. I met Amanda at a local coffee shop, where she worked as a barista. There was an instant connection when she wrote her number on my cup instead of my name. She had this captivating smile that reached her eyes, making them crinkle at the corners. Her laugh was infectious, and she seemed genuinely interested in everything I had to say. I fell hard and fast. For 6 months, everything seemed perfect. Amanda fit right into my life like she had always been there. The first time I brought her home to meet my family, everyone adored her. My mother immediately took her into the kitchen to share recipes. My father talked sports with her, impressed by her knowledge of basketball statistics. Even Sarah, who was typically reserved around my girlfriends, bonded with Amanda over their shared love of true crime podcasts. But it was her connection with Jason that I should have paid more attention to. At first, it seemed harmless. They discovered they both loved the same obscure indie band and spent an hour discussing their favorite albums. I was actually happy they got along so well. That should have been my first warning sign. Around the 4-month mark, I started noticing subtle changes in Amanda. She began asking more questions about Jason. What was he doing this weekend? Did I think he would want to join us for dinner? Was he seeing anyone? I brushed it off as friendly interest in my family. She also started finding reasons to visit my family home when I was busy with work projects. "Your mom asked for my chocolate chip cookie recipe," she would say. Or, "I promised to help your dad set up his new phone." I was planning to propose to Amanda on my 28th birthday. I had saved for months to buy a ring that I thought was perfect for her. A vintage emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds that reminded me of her eyes. I kept it hidden in my sock drawer occasionally, taking it out just to imagine the moment I would ask her to be my wife. 2 weeks before my birthday, I overheard Amanda on the phone while she thought I was in the shower. He does not suspect anything, she said in a hushed tone. "Just stick to the plan." When she saw me, she quickly ended the call and said it was her friend planning my surprise birthday party. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Looking back, I was so blind. The day before my birthday, I needed to borrow a tie from Jason for a client meeting. While looking through his drawer, I found something that made my blood run cold. An engagement ring. Not just any ring, but one remarkably similar to the one I had bought for Amanda. Confusion washed over me, followed by a sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. I confronted Jason that evening when he got home from work. His reaction was defensive, almost angry. "Why were you going through my stuff?" he demanded, face flushed. "I needed a tie." "Why do you have an engagement ring?" "It is for someone else." "Not everything is about you, Vincent." He stormed off before I could ask any more questions. That night, Amanda canceled our dinner plans, claiming she had a migraine. The unease grew stronger, but I still could not piece it all together. The following morning, my actual birthday, my mother called and insisted I come home for a family meeting. Her voice sounded strained, but when I asked what was wrong, she just said we needed to talk in person. I remember driving over with a growing sense of dread, still clueless about what awaited me. When I arrived at my parents' house, the atmosphere was thick with tension. My mother's eyes were red-rimmed from crying. My father sat rigid in his favorite armchair, jaw clenched. Sarah perched on the edge of the sofa, looking uncomfortable and confused. And there, standing together, were Amanda and Jason. I will never forget the look on Amanda's face. Tears streaked her makeup, but there was something else in her eyes. Something calculated. She stood slightly behind Jason, one hand gripping his arm as if for support. The family gathering I walked into was not a birthday celebration. It was an ambush. "Sit down, Vincent," my father commanded, his voice colder than I had ever heard it. I sat across from them, feeling like a defendant in a trial where I did not know the charges. Amanda took a deep breath before launching into a story that turned my world upside down. "I cannot keep pretending anymore," she began, voice trembling in a way that seemed rehearsed. "Vincent has not been the person you all think he is." What followed was a character assassination so thorough, it left me speechless. According to Amanda, I was controlling and emotionally abusive. She claimed I monitored her phone, checked her location constantly, and isolated her from friends. Each accusation was more outrageous than the last, yet delivered with such conviction that my family's expressions grew darker with every word. "He threatened me," she said. "The most damaging lie of all. He said if I ever tried to leave him, he would make sure I regretted it." My father's hands clenched into fists. My mother covered her mouth in horror. Sarah looked at me as if seeing a stranger. "That is not true," I finally managed to say. "None of this is true. I would never do those things." But my protests fell on deaf ears. The narrative had already been established. I was the villain in their story. Then came the final blow delivered by my own brother. "Amanda and I have feelings for each other," Jason said, looking at the floor instead of at me. "We did not mean for it to happen. But we have been fighting it for months because we were afraid of how Vincent would react." My mother started crying harder. My father stood up, towering over me with rage and disappointment radiating from him. "Your apartment is in our name," he reminded me. The condo I lived in was an investment property they owned, which they had let me rent at a reduced rate while I saved for my own place. "I want your keys before you leave today." I could not believe what was happening. I pointed out the inconsistencies in Amanda's story, reminded them of our happy relationship, begged them to think about who I was, the son they had raised. "You have always been good at talking your way out of things," my father said dismissively. "But not this time." The speed with which my family accepted these lies was the deepest cut of all. 27 years of knowing me versus 6 months of knowing Amanda, and they chose to believe her without question. "You have 1 hour to pack what you need and leave," my father said. "The rest of your things will be boxed up and you can arrange to pick them up later." My mother could not even look at me as I pleaded one last time. She stared at her hands, twisted in her lap, shoulders shaking with sobs. I went to my old bedroom in a daze, pulling a duffel bag from the closet and mechanically filling it with the few clothes I kept at my parents' house. On the dresser was a family photo from Sarah's graduation the previous year. We were all smiling, arms around each other, not knowing that within a year we would be strangers. As I carried my bag down the stairs, Jason was waiting in the hallway. For a moment I thought I saw regret in his eyes. "I am sorry it turned out this way," he said quietly. "No, you are not," I replied, the shock beginning to give way to anger. "You planned this." He did not deny it, which was the only honesty in that whole terrible day. I put my house keys on the entry table, took one last look at the home I grew up in, and walked out. No one came to say goodbye. No one tried to stop me. It was my 28th birthday, and instead of a proposal and celebration, I was homeless, familyless, and completely alone. As I drove away, I saw Jason watching from the window, Amanda at his side. The ultimate betrayal was complete. Little did I know that this rock-bottom moment was just the beginning of my journey. That first night was the longest of my life. I sat in my car in a Walmart parking lot, still wearing the clothes I had put on that morning, when my biggest concern was whether my clients would like my presentation. I tried calling friends, but word travels fast. Amanda had already reached out to many of our mutual acquaintances with her version of events. Some did not pick up. Others were cold, saying they needed space to process. Only Michael, My college roommate, who lived in Portland, offered any help. "Come crash on my couch," he said. "Take some time to figure things out." The 3-hour drive to Portland was a blur. I kept replaying the day's events, trying to understand how everything had imploded so completely. Had there been signs I missed? Could I have prevented this somehow? The next few weeks were a downward spiral. I took a leave of absence from work, but my performance had already been suffering from the emotional turmoil. 2 months after moving to Portland, I was called into my manager's office and let go. Severance pay would cover a month of expenses, but after that, I was on my own. Meanwhile, social media twisted the knife deeper. Amanda and Jason went official with their relationship just weeks after my exile. Photos showed them at family dinners, weekend trips, and eventually moving into my old apartment together. Friends I had known for years posted supportive comments on their pictures. I was erased, replaced, and forgotten. 3 months after losing my family job and home, I found myself standing on a bridge overlooking the Willamette River. It was past midnight, the water below dark, and inviting in its finality. I stood there for almost an hour, contemplating how easy it would be to make the pain stop. "Not worth it, son." The voice startled me. An older man with a weathered face and a military backpack stood a few feet away. He introduced himself as Frank, a Vietnam veteran who had been homeless on and off for decades. "Whatever you lost, it is not worth losing yourself too," he said, with the wisdom of someone who had faced his own bridge moments. We talked until sunrise. Frank told me how he had lost his wife, children, and career to PTSD and alcoholism. How he had rebuilt himself piece by piece, finding purpose in helping other vets navigate the system. His story put my own pain in perspective and gave me the push I needed to step back from the edge. The next day, I applied for a job at a small tech startup in Portland. The pay was less than half of what I had been making, but it was a fresh start. I found a tiny studio apartment that I could barely afford and started therapy with a counselor at a community clinic. For 3 years, I avoided dating entirely. The betrayal had left scars that needed time to heal. Instead, I focused on my career, pouring myself into projects and gradually climbing the ranks at the startup. As the company grew, so did my position and salary. By year 4, I was head of development and a minority partner in the business. I built a new circle of friends, people who knew nothing about my past and accepted me for who I was now. I started hiking, joined a recreational basketball league, volunteered at a coding camp for kids. Slowly, I rebuilt a life worth living. Then came the letter that nearly undid all my progress. A cream-colored envelope with my name and address, handwritten in a familiar script. Inside was a wedding invitation. Jason and Amanda were getting married, and for some unfathomable reason they wanted me there. Tucked behind the invitation was a note, "Vincent. We hope time has healed old wounds. Things happened for a reason, and we would love to have you be part of our special day. Family is family, after all." The audacity stunned me. After everything they had done, they expected me to smile and congratulate them, to give my blessing to a relationship built on lies and betrayal. For the first time in years, I acted on impulse. I took a red marker and wrote across the invitation, "No thanks. I am busy building a life without toxic people." I sealed it in the return envelope and dropped it in the mail before I could reconsider. That small act of defiance marked a turning point in my recovery. I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor who had rebuilt himself from scratch, and I was done allowing my past to define my future. 6 years after being kicked out, my phone lit up with a notification that stopped me in my tracks. A friend request from Sarah, my sister. Accompanying it was a message, "Vincent, I found you. We need to talk. So much has happened and you deserve to know the truth." My finger hovered over the delete button. I had fought hard for my peace and wasn't sure I wanted to invite chaos back in, but curiosity won out. I accepted the request and agreed to a video call. Sarah's face appeared on my screen, older but still recognizable. She burst into tears at the sight of me. "You look good," she said, through sobs. "I was so worried about what happened to you." "I survived," I replied simply. "Why are you reaching out now after 6 years of silence?" What Sarah revealed next confirmed what I had suspected, but never had proof of. Amanda was a practiced manipulator who had targeted our family intentionally. After she and Jason got married, the facade began to crack. Amanda's controlling nature emerged, isolating Jason from friends and family just as she had falsely accused me of doing to her. She cheated on him, Vincent, Sarah said, multiple times. The last guy came forward with texts showing Amanda had told him Jason was abusive. It was the exact same playbook she used on you. Jason's marriage imploded spectacularly during a family Thanksgiving dinner when Amanda's latest affair partner showed up unaware the family would be there. The confrontation that followed revealed Amanda's history of similar accusations in past relationships. A pattern of latching onto someone manufacturing abuse claims, then using those claims to transition to her next target. Dad had a heart attack last year, Sarah continued. When we thought he might not make it, he kept saying he needed to apologize to you. That making you leave was his greatest regret. My parents had been searching for me for years, she explained. They had hired a private investigator who finally connected the dots through my company website. They want to see you, Sarah said. We all do. Even Jason, though he is too ashamed to reach out himself. I ended the call, promising nothing but agreeing to think about it. For weeks I wrestled with conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to reject them, as they had rejected me. Another part yearned for the family I had lost. Eventually, I agreed to meet them at a restaurant in Seattle, neutral ground where I could walk away if needed. Seeing my parents again was surreal. My father had aged a decade in 6 years, his once robust frame now thin and stooped. My mother's hair had gone completely gray, deep lines etched around her eyes from what Sarah later told me were years of crying over my absence. Vincent, my father said, voice breaking, as he stood to greet me. He moved as if to hug me, but stopped when I did not reciprocate. We sat in awkward silence until my mother spoke. We failed you, she said simply. There are no words that can undo what we did, but I hope you can believe how deeply sorry we are. My father described their gradual realization of Amanda's deception, how the same behaviors she had accused me of began appearing in her relationship with Jason. How one night, drunk and angry after a fight with Amanda, Jason had confessed that they had planned everything, including the timing of the confrontation on my birthday. I know I do not deserve your forgiveness, my father said. But I am asking for it anyway. Before I die, I need you to know how much I regret choosing her lies over my own son. I had imagined this moment for years, fantasized about shouting at them, making them feel the pain I had endured. But sitting across from their broken expressions, I felt nothing but exhaustion. I built a good life, I told them. Without any of you. I have a successful company, friends who actually stand by me, and peace that was hard-earned. I do not know if there is a place for you in that life. My bluntness made my mother flinch, but it was the truth they needed to hear. I was not the same desperate young man they had cast out. I was stronger now, with boundaries they would need to respect. If you want any relationship going forward, it will be on my terms, I said. And it starts with a clean slate. No more lies, no more blind trust, no more family loyalty that only works in one direction. They agreed to my terms, grateful for any chance to make amends. Over the next 6 months, we began rebuilding bridges. Sunday phone calls. Occasional dinners when I was in Seattle for business. My mother sent care packages with my favorite cookies. My father emailed articles he thought might interest me, small gestures that acknowledged who I was, now not who they had lost. Jason was notably absent from these reconciliation efforts until one rainy Tuesday when he appeared at my door in Portland. I do not expect you to forgive me, he said, looking older and humbled, but I need you to hear me say how sorry I am. Not just for taking Amanda, but for the lies we told, for not standing up for you, for stealing 6 years we cannot get back. I invited him in and we talked for hours. The anger I had carried toward my brother had evolved into something more complex. I could see how Amanda had manipulated him too. How she had played on his insecurities and jealousy. She left me for my best friend, Jason said with bitter irony. Told him I was controlling and abusive, just like she said about you. History repeats itself, I observed, without sympathy. The rebuilding of trust with my family was gradual and imperfect. There were setbacks, moments when old wounds reopened. But there was progress too, a new foundation built on painful honesty rather than comfortable lies. During this period of reconciliation, I met Kate, a project manager at a client company. She was direct, compassionate, and carried her own scars from past betrayals. When I eventually shared my full story, she did not offer empty platitudes. Instead, she said, "Their loss was immeasurable, but look at the man it helped you become." We took things slowly, both wary of past patterns. But the relationship that developed was stronger for our caution, built on mutual respect and clear communication. At a family dinner a year after our reunion, my mother asked if my forgiveness meant I had put the past behind me. "Forgiveness is not forgetting," I told her. "I forgave you all for my own peace, not for yours." The past shaped me, and pretending it did not happen would dishonor the strength it took to survive it. It was perhaps the most honest moment we had ever shared as a family. And in that honesty, I found the closure I had been seeking for years. Today, I am engaged to Kate, running a company that just secured its first major round of funding and maintaining a carefully balanced relationship with my family. The journey from betrayal to rebuilding taught me lessons I never expected to learn. I discovered that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself. That resilience is not about bouncing back to who you were before, but growing into someone stronger because of what you endured. That forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, releasing the anger that only poisons your own happiness. The hardest lesson was learning that blind loyalty is not love. Real love seeks truth and stands firm even when standing alone. My family's immediate acceptance of lies about me revealed a conditional love I had not recognized until it was withdrawn. My new life is built on authentic connections. My relationship with Kate is honest in ways I never knew were possible. My friendships are fewer but deeper, forged with people who have seen my broken edges and stayed anyway. Even my relationship with my family has an authenticity it lacked before, now that we have faced our worst truths together. The brother who betrayed me, the parents who disowned me, the woman who orchestrated it all, they took 6 years of my life. But they also gave me an unexpected gift. They freed me from the illusion that love and loyalty are the same thing, that family ties are unbreakable no matter what. In rebuilding myself, I found a stronger foundation than the one I lost. If you are watching this and facing your own betrayal, know that rock bottom can be the solid ground on which you rebuild. Your worth is not determined by those who abandoned you. Your story does not end with their rejection. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have forgiven your family or walked away permanently? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing and hitting the like button. Your support helps me continue sharing these personal journeys. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the hardest chapters of our lives lead to the most beautiful endings.